thank you for taking a moment with us and we're talking to you about your book and what you like to read and motherhood as well. Your book, My Wild and Sleepless Nights, is an incredibly honest account of your experience of motherhood and family life. But for those who haven't read it yet, what can they expect from the book?
Um, the book is well, the book is actually the book that I kind of wanted to read when my fifth child was born, when I was in my early 40s, and I'd had my first child in my mid 20s, Jimmy, and I had my fifth child, two marriages, and I was 41, and I still felt incredibly sort of overwhelmed, excited, in awe, scared, in love with this child, a kind of sense of dread of like, what have I done again? And also incredibly, happy and I couldn't really find something that sort of really got this and also got and expressed the whole the whole range of motherhood from that moment or even from when you're first pregnant really to what I was also going through at the same time, which was my 16-year-old son, who is now 20, was crashing into, actually, he was well in the midst of kind of adolescent life. And he was getting into lots of the kind of trouble that adolescents get into, which I got into, as an adolescent. He was expelled from his school. So I was dealing with a newborn baby and a, big adolescent boy at the same time with another three children in between. So I really wanted to write something which expressed the whole thing and wasn't just about the beginning bit or wasn't just about sleep and buggies. And I really didn't want to read about that. Or I wanted to read about some of that, but I wanted to read about what was kind of going on in your heart and your head because it's so extreme motherhood. So that's what, and I write about everything. I write about my baby, of course, my body, my marriage, my relationships with my children, how that affects me, my relationship, my different relationships with my children, um, my desire to go back to a pre-child life. I write very openly about sex and drugs and the kind of stuff that mothers, still are not really supposed to sort of talk about, I suppose. I wanted to have that conversation, and it's kind of all in the book, I suppose. That's what it's about. So it's very, very, very honest and very heartfelt and very raw.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah, definitely. I think one of the things I think is still quite difficult is when you become a mother, like you're still a woman, you're still all of those things that you've always been. You've got your own career and your own relationships, and I think sometimes there's the the heaviness is to just kind of lose all your identity in being a mother and
Yeah.
kind of what that means and being the perfect mother, not just a mother but a
Yeah.
perfect one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like that about the book and the kind of the honesty about it and the fact that you have had a child but you're still you and you've still got
Totally.
yeah.
You
Definitely.
can't, when you have a child, you don't suddenly become a grown up, which people, you sort of imagine that, that's when I'll be a grown up when I've got a child. You really don't. In my experience, you remain kind of a sort of at the moment of, I mean, obviously you're more mature, but you sort of remain at that kind of 18, 19, when you start to become an adult, you have just the same feelings, just the same desires, just the same anxieties, neuroses. And I think that's really interesting because we sort of, yeah, we think that parenthood is adulthood. And then so many of us get there and realize I still have no idea what's going on at all.
Definitely. What does being a mother mean to you?
It's funny because I've been a mother since I was 24. I'm now 45. So I've been a mother for all of my, for a long time, 25 years, for all of my kind of adult life. And um I was saying to a friend recently, I know I've got five children, but sometimes I still don't really feel like a mother. For exactly this, exactly what we were talking about just then. And I, very, very much am a mother. I have very, very high level of responsibility. My husband's away at the moment, actually, so I've got all five kids on my own for a couple of months. I am their mum completely. And yesterday on Mother's Day, my daughter did a post, with my 17-year-old daughter with some pictures of me and her. And I'd been looking at everyone else's Instagram posts with their, pictures of them with their mum. And that was the first time one of the kids had done that for me on Instagram. And I suddenly sort of saw myself as the mother, I suppose. It was quite moving. I suppose what I'm kind of getting around to saying is that motherhood means love for me. It really, really profoundly. That is the absolute baseline. That is the heart. That is the foundation on which it all must be built. Much more than whether you are good at getting them to sleep or have a natural labour or can breastfeed or have the right type of buggy or what age they learn to read. You know, the list goes on and on and on of different things you can try and do and usually end up doing quite badly in my experience. But I love them deeply and they know that I love them really, really deeply. So for me, it really, really does mean love. Yeah. And that's a tight, that's, it's easy to love your children. I find it very easy to love my children, even when they're being very annoying. And my 6-year-old got up at 4 a.m. this morning, was running around looking for a computer to watch Minecraft on. It was just horrendous. It's still easy to love them, even when they're really, really testing you. It's not always easy to love being a mother, and I think that that's the kind of just because you don't love being a mother at all times, that doesn't mean you don't love your children. The two things are completely different. So it means, yeah, it means love. That doesn't mean that I always love the role, but I definitely always love the people, love the children.
Yeah, I think it's a role that comes with a lot of demands and a lot of sacrifice and a
Yeah,
lot of juggling. And
yeah,
there's never, you never really get to the end of the to-do list. It's, there's
no,
always going to be something that's just going to slide, like just
yeah,
slide. So
yeah.
definitely. What's the best advice on motherhood you've ever received?
The best advice on motherhood is probably to keep on talking to them, keep on communicating with them, keep on having a conversation. And I think that that's particularly important in obviously when they're little, you're usually talking to them a lot of the time, but in as they go into teenage life, and there can be a bit of a separation, irritation with one another, a sort of questioning of who you both are, questioning your values, questioning your sort of, who you are as people, which is right because they're becoming their own beings. But I think that thing of continuing to, in a way, sort of force a conversation sometimes, but to be present to them. And I mean, have found with my teenage children is to do stuff with them that might be quite like putting the bins out or taking the dog for a walk. That it doesn't have to be, oh, a kind of movie night and Netflix and popcorn. It doesn't have to be that idealized version of what it might be like. It's more the kind of, often the best conversations that I've had with my teenagers. It hasn't happened so much in the last year because I haven't driven very many places, but often it's in the car when they can't get away from you. And in fact, I wrote that up as one of the scenes in my Wild and Sleepless Nights. There was a conversation with my son Jimmy when he was in loads of trouble, and I had a newborn baby, and we were in this car on this really hot day, and we had an explosive conversation, and then we sort of started talking again. And um, so communication is is the key, and keep on talking, keep on believing in them, even when nobody else does, or it's unlikely that nobody's going to be believing in them. But even when they're in trouble or they're not believing in themselves, your kind of presence for them that's what matters, and that's what will help them definitely.
Yeah, I think the thing about the car is really interesting because I think it's also having difficult conversations a lot of the time. Taking the eye contact away makes people feel more honest. I think when you're kind of
Yes,
both in the car and you don't have to see each other's reactions,
yeah,
I think you can kind of like let it out a bit more.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
What would be your top 3 tips to someone who is about to become a mother?
um to to accept, I think it's really important that if somebody wants to help you and you've had a newborn baby and you think, it's very easy when you've had a newborn baby to think, especially because of the pressure to snap back into shape and be all over social media. If somebody says, "Oh, what can I do?" Take that help, even if it's to just come and hold the baby for half an hour or to make you some food. And I suppose that would lead to the second bit of advice. So the first would be like, take the help, definitely take the help. And also, don't underestimate how vulnerable you will be feeling after you've had a newborn baby. and for really quite a long time as well. I actually found that immediately after I'd had the baby, for a few weeks I felt like superwoman. I just felt like, oh my God, I've produced this incredible, you know otherworldly little person of beauty and perfection. I'm an amazing, strong person. I can do anything. And then the kind of weeks and weeks of exhaustion and lack of space and lack of headspace arrives, and you can. I've had postnatal depression quite badly twice, so I do feel quite kind of protective about women when I see them with newborn babies, and they're kind of, because there's such an expectation for it to be this perfect experience, and it's going to be about a kind of sweetness, and it's about kind of bunnies and chicks and something sweet and cuddly, and it is that. And then it was also about something really primal and really, really exhausting and really violent, and like deep inside you and deep inside your kind of bone marrow is your love for your child and your desire to protect them, sometimes your desire to get away from them. When I had postnatal depression, sometimes I just wanted to, I had the intrusive thoughts that made me want to like throw the baby out the window or something, or have had terrible fantasies about things, my brain taking me to places. I wasn't going to do that, but I kind of had those type of feelings. So look after yourself, continually look after yourself, um, and be, if at any point you feel unable to cope or strange, or kind of, postnatal depression is about being inside, you're locked in, talk to somebody about it, because that makes it much easier. um, so take the help and look after yourself, and also know that it is a long process. Motherhood is not about having a baby. Motherhood is about a long lifetime's relationship with a person, and that relationship goes through difficult stages, boring stages, stages of kind of sometimes kind of weary indifference to one another, real love for each other, kind of passion and excitement around one another. But it's a long time, and I feel really privileged to have had this relationship with my elder children, as well as having, so my kids are like 20, 17, 8, 6 and 4. So I kind of have been through the whole cycle of parenthood with my elder kids, and knowing that it goes on for a long time. There's a lot of time to get it right when you feel like you're getting it wrong, which you often do, and have faith in that sort of sense of the long relationship, I suppose, and enjoy it. But see the long game, I guess, would be another bit of advice.
Yeah, I think that's excellent advice. I think also, when you have a newborn baby, not only are you kind of, you're physically, everything's, it's the most dangerous thing you'll ever do, probably physically, emotionally. And also I think it kind of, you have so many expectations on yourself, and society puts it on you as well. But I think it's also one of those really unique times in life when it kind of gives other people a license to just, give unsolicited advice, and to, really ask you kind of quite intrusive questions, which I think at any other point wouldn't be acceptable. But I think when you've had a new baby, especially if it's your first one, it's kind of, you have to deal with like fending off, your mother-in-law's perfect advice, and so many other things are going on.
Yeah.
um, what do you think of the biggest misconception about motherhood is?
I think that it's a kind of gentle, soft experience. My experience is something far more visceral and passionate, and I do use the word passionate. I've talked before, and I write as well in the book, about how your relationship with your child is very, it goes through times of being incredibly kind of consuming emotionally, but also very sort of physically consuming. And the desire for them, especially when they're small, the kind of sweet, their sweet desire to cuddle you and be with you, and the kind of, that sort of passionate connection that you have to one another, is kind of startling, I think, until you've had a child. Is because, apart from, in my experience, I've never really felt passionate, apart from someone who is a sexual partner. And I'm not saying it, of course, I'm not in any way saying it as a sexual thing, but it is like a physical thing. And it is, the kind of closeness and the skin on skin thing. And that goes on for quite a long time, until my 6-year-old son, when he the only way I could get him to stop looking for computer screens this morning at 4 a.m. was to make him get into bed with me and really, really hold him tight, snuggle up to me. It's yeah, it's quite it's quite animal basically, and I think that is a bit unsettling when you have children and you're not expecting it, and it kind of, I guess it starts a bit in pregnancy, but labor is such a, I mean, it's such a kind of strange, raw, wild experience, and that's the first time it kind of crashes into you. But it's so wild that you can also end up feeling quite removed from it quite soon after labour, because it's such a sort of otherworldly experience, really, isn't it? But I think to kind of prepare yourself, yeah, for the feeling of this um, animal desire for your children and need for your children is disconcerting, because I guess you lose a kind of independence and a part of yourself in that as well.
Yeah, I think also it's kind of that protectiveness, isn't it? That kind of that fierce love and that kind of, yeah, like a lion and her cub. It's kind of, really
Yeah.
intense. Yeah, definitely. Lockdown has been very challenging for parents if you've been homeschooling and everything. What's really helped you get through the past year?
The thing that's really helped me get through the past year is two things. One is getting up at 6 a.m. and writing early in the morning. So I've been writing another book in the last year. Even if I hadn't been on a book deadline, even when I've got up and I haven't written, but having that early morning time, sometimes it was as long as until 8 a.m. Sometimes it was a whole 2 hours. Sometimes the kids came down, they didn't give me 2 hours, but having some time to, even if it was just go on Instagram, or, sometimes I would write, even one morning I wrote 1,000 words. That's really, really brilliant to do that before 8 o'clock. But to just have some time to make a cup of tea, be in the kitchen, look at the news, look out the window, just have some headspace, basically. And the other thing, which I am indebted to, is my elder two children, because they looked after the younger ones, particularly last year in the afternoon, so that I could work. And their kind of generosity, they were amazing. I felt so sorry for them. These two teenagers. I mean, Jimmy's now 20, but he was 19, spending his 18th, 19th year when he was supposed to be away at university. Instead, he was like looking after the kids in the afternoon and doing art with them and doing bushcraft with them and kind of playing with them. And as was Dolly, my daughter, who was 16 at the time. So they really, really, really helped me to get through lockdown, because I think that, the claustrophobia of it has been, and the relentlessness of it. And I think that and let's face it, it is mothers. Mothers have carried the can for this. Um, they, they are the ones. I think there's much research that says they are the ones whose work has taken a hit and who have done a lot more of the homeschooling, and also, annoyingly, I mean, more than annoyingly, a lot more of the domestic work as well. Um, and I think what we've all been through has been kind of weird. And when the kids went back to school a few days ago, I sort of walked around the house feeling a bit kind of dazed. What's been going on? And also, oh my God, is it going to happen again? That's the other thing. I keep thinking, I'm sure it's all going to start up again. I'm
Yeah,
not free.
I know. I think that's really sweet though that they've been bonding and been helping out, and hopefully that will kind of really glue them together. And it's a really kind of,
Hmm.
I know it's a difficult time. It's also quite a special time that families can be together in one unit, and kind of
Yeah,
it's a time that they'll probably never have again. But I feel
yeah,
so sorry for the older teenagers or young people who have had like a year out of their lives, when they've got like university, or even if they're at university, the fact that they can't socialize in the way that you would, and that's a massive part of the experience,
yeah.
really. It's
I
just,
know, I
it's
know.
horrible, it's
I mean,
terrible.
I hope that they will have developed other skills, like kind of makes them more able to sort of deal with themselves, I think, and having to kind of the fact that there hasn't been endless distraction, places to go to, it's made them more resilient, I guess. We're lucky. We live, I think it's really important to, yeah, for me to acknowledge that I live in the countryside. We've got fields around us, so we have had space, and I think that's been really, really amazing. Although my teenagers would probably have been preferred to live in the city, at least they could go and walk and see their friends. But I think that I mean, my kids seem to have come through it relatively well, and I hope that they will remember it as a kind of strange, I mean, weird. Jimmy said to me, "Mum, you've got to stop like just walking around saying it's just been so weird," but it just has
Yeah.
a strange, other, but important time in some way or another. That they won't think of it in a negative way. I hope so, anyway.
Yeah, I think as difficult as it's been, I think everyone has kind of found value in smaller things and kind of, prioritize being with a family or, looking after yourself or the joy of having a bath, like little things. So I think
Mm.
everyone's ability to self-soothe, I think, has kind of
Yeah,
come a long way,
yeah,
definitely.
yes.
Well, at Page Turners, we love books and we want to know what books you've been loving as well. So what have you read recently that you've loved?
Well, I'm really lucky because I do get sent lots and lots of proofs. So I'm always kind of reading ahead of what's coming out because I do a weekly, interview with a writer. And I started that in lockdown actually because my book was launched just before lockdown and then all the literary events were cancelled and I saw other writers like thinking, oh my God. So I started doing a weekly interview with the writer and that's been really nice. So some of the books that I've been sent lately are Annie Mac's book, which is called Mother, Mother. I think it's out in May, which is set in Ireland, and it is a really sort of strange, sensitive take on motherhood and motherhood to a grown-up child as well, and what that kind of takes from you and the secrets that you hold as well and the secrets you keep around it. Annie's a really, obviously she's really well known for being a radio DJ, but she's a really sensitive and beautiful writer. So that's been really really wonderful. I was sent Lisa Tadeo's new novel, which is called Animal, which is about women and motherhood, and it just completely blew my mind. Actually, I have to admit that I didn't love Three Women. I didn't. I know there was a big, big thing about it, and for many women it was life changing. It didn't get me in the same way, but this new one, Animal, has really, really, really gripped me. Her writing, it's made me want to be a better writer. It's made me want to write in a more honest, more visceral way. The way that she kind of translates the female experience is really, really extraordinary.
Well, thank you so much. This was so fun. I hope you enjoyed it too.
Yes, I really did. It's really, really nice. It's always nice to talk about books.